right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. Today, Kate, we're going to be talking about fermented foods.
Yay.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
I love this.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this one.
How long have you been drinking kombucha?
I think you talked me into it about 3 years ago.
I talked you into it. Nice.
I used to think, like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It is.
We are broadcasting worldwide from Southern California, so thank you, excuse me, for joining us on our broadcast here. We're doing 4 shows a week on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And this is extremehealthradio.com/84, episode number 84. So you go to our website /84 and get the transcription, the show notes, and anything like that. And let's see what else. This is Wednesday, April 10th, 2013, just for reference. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook, feel free to do that. We'd love to have you join our community. That's extremehealthradio.com/Facebook. And thanks to Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network. Really appreciate that from Mike Adams. That's great, great show there, naturalnewsradio.com. And today's show is brought to you by Amazon.com. So if you ever purchase from Amazon and would like to support our work, we'll get a little commission if you would go through our link, which is extremehealthradio.com/Amazon. And that will just redirect you to their webpage, and you can buy anything you like. It doesn't have to be health related, and that'd be a great way to support us. So feel free to do that whenever you make purchases. That'd be great. We've got a lot of great guests coming up. It's really going to be fun. We have on Thursday, tomorrow, Kate, Dana Martin from Unschooling.
Oh.
So we'll be talking about unschooling, and her website's danamartin.com.
Yay.
That's going to be a cool show.
Yeah.
And then we have your favorite guy, Dr. Bradley Nelson.
Big fan.
Author of The Emotion Code.
Right.
That's on Monday, April 15th. And then we have Stephen Huer from One World Whey and Synergistic Nutrition with the protein powder.
Oh.
Yeah, and he has lots of other products too, but he has a raw grass-fed protein powder that he promotes. And
awesome.
Yeah, really good stuff. And today we have Hannah Crum, and she's been into fermenting food and specifically making kombucha for many years now, and she runs a website called Kombucha Camp. That's with 2 Ks, Kombucha Camp, and I believe we are connecting to her in Los Angeles, or just north of Los Angeles, right?
Yes, we are here in Beverly Hills.
Nice. We've been having some great weather in Southern California lately, haven't we?
Yeah, but it's been oddly windy. Have the winds been whipping up down by you guys?
Oh my gosh, it was like a hurricane the other day. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was like, are we getting a tornado? That's so unusual.
Yeah, I heard it was worse. It was worse in LA, I know. That's crazy. It was still pretty weird here, though.
It happens every year. I think it's, the Santa Anas
Yep.
kick up every year.
Yeah.
It's part of our seasons here in California.
Yeah, what little season we have, it's, we still complain.
We have jasmine blossom season. The jacaranda season is going to start. I go by the flowers, so whatever flower is in bloom, that's kind of what season it is.
Oh, I like it.
Oh, I love that.
That's great.
Yeah, there's nothing walking by a jasmine. That's the best.
Oh my gosh. And it really like around January, February is when they come into blossom. And I'm just like, yes, spring is on its way.
Oh, nice. Do you have a garden yourself there where you live?
In fact, I do. And of course, I have jasmine in my garden. So that's how I really keep track.
Oh, nice. Do you grow some of your food there too?
I do, yeah. And I grow tomatoes and herbs. I love to use the herbs when flavoring my kombucha. And then I do have a worm composter that I put old kombucha cultures and things like that into there as well. And it just makes this really rich dirt that makes my plants grow like crazy.
One thing I've always wondered about the worm, not the worm kombucha. the
new
worm,
flavor.
The new flavor. The worm, what do you call it?
Composting?
The composting. Composting kombucha sounds similar. But the worm composting, do you put the compost in your garden with the worms? Do the worms go into your soil?
Yeah, some of them do.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of made my own. Well, I had my help from my brother and sister, but so basically I took an old garbage bucket, like a plastic one, and put a little screen at the bottom, and then just started piling stuff in there, put the worms in there. So I have to turn it manually. Normally it'll come out like a little, the dirt will come out through a bottom container, but since mine is homemade, so what I do is I scoop out some of the dirt on top. That's I'm going to save for the bottom of the next time. And then what I have underneath is all this rich soil. I mean, it's really beautiful what it turns into. And then, the worms go back into the dirt. I have a container garden, so I don't even really have access to dirt in the ground. So everything's in pots, but it does really well back here. I've got a little lemon tree. We got tomatoes popping up. I started growing some potatoes. Just, it's just fun to see green things growing.
Oh, I know.
Isn't it though?
Yeah, I love the springtime. And have you heard of the Gervais? I think they're called the Gervais family. They're somewhere in LA, and they grow, I forget how many thousands of pounds of food on 1/20th of an acre. Have you heard about this family?
I have not, but that sounds tremendous.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I think they live on 1/10 of an acre, and half of their land, so that would be 1/20th of an acre. They grow everything, and they supply all kinds of restaurants in Los Angeles with their produce and everything. And they're just amazing family, and their whole front yard and backyard is like this incredible garden. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's part of this DIY movement. I think that even in the city, we can create that type of kind of farm-like environment if we commit ourselves to it, right? Do you guys have a garden? Are you growing any of your own food?
We do. We have a little garden here, and we're starting to grow some food, and it's really been a fun process. And I just love it. It feels so great to connect with the earth and to do that.
It does. I can't say that I have an extreme depth of knowledge, but I really do enjoy just pulling up the weeds is such a pleasurable activity. So I just like being out in the dirt. And they say, and part of this is, again, related to kombucha in that it's the microbes in the soil that give you a positive feeling. So coming into contact with those microbes, regardless of how you get in touch with them, whether it's through your kombucha or your other fermented foods or the soil, provide that kind of happy, good feeling.
Yeah, I know. You mean yesterday I was just out there. I didn't have any time to do anything. And I was just smelling the soil and like putting my fingers and touching it. And it just makes you feel alive. It's wild.
Well, we are nature. As much as we have invented all of these things to sort of control nature, so to speak. I mean, we temperature control our homes and this and that, and we feel like we're in control, right?
Right.
I can press a button and now it's warm, or I can press a button and now it's cold. But in fact, we are, that's how we got to this world, right? Is through the earth and through connecting with the earth. And that's what I think, this kombucha thing is really leading me back to is what does it mean to be a human being? Mm-hmm. And part of what I've come to realize is that being a human being means we're also very much bacteria. When they look at the number of cells in our body, bacteria outnumber our human cells 10 to 1. Now they're much smaller, so of course that's how they're more populous in that regard. They're not as big as our human cells, but they also are in a way like the network. They're the way in which our cells know what to do. So because bacteria transfer genetic code very easily, they can help affect with gene transfer. This was, you've heard of the Human Genome Project, right? In the 90s, where they wanted to code the human genome. Well, they had to, at that time, they didn't really pay much attention to bacteria in the body. They just, it's just there. They didn't really understand its relationship or function. But what they realized is they couldn't finish the Human Genome Project until they understood the role that bacteria play even in our genetic replication, in our DNA replication. So bacteria are such an intrinsic part of our organism, even down to that, into the nucleus of the cells, helping our DNA to replicate. That's how important they are. And that's why this whole trend of antibacterial soaps, and certainly antibiotics and things like this, we need those for intense situations when it's a life and death and we need to use those things. But the overprescription, the overuse of them, and has really led to people losing their bacteriological heritage and with it their immunity.
Right. So how did you get started with all of the kombucha? Did you get started doing any other fermented foods like sauerkraut and things, or was kombucha your first introduction to fermented foods?
Kombucha was the first. I wasn't really much of a cook when I first discovered kombucha. I was, standard American diet, pizza, fast food, all that stuff. And I was visiting a friend from college who lived in San Francisco at the time, and his girlfriend's giving me a tour of his ultra cool, hippie San Francisco apartment. And one of the very first stops on our tour was to her table where she had a box, and in the box were all these jars, glass jars, and they were covered with cloths. And she goes, "That's the kombucha."
Like the Holy Grail.
Exactly. I had never heard of it. I had no idea what it was. And in fact, we didn't even taste any of her kombucha at that time because it was still fermenting. It wasn't ready. Wow. And I don't know, it just was intriguing to me. And so came back to LA, grabbed a bottle off the shelf from Whole Foods, and it was love at first sip. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, I used to love sneaking the pickle juice out of the pickle jar. If my mom ever caught me, she would yell at me and say, "Y'all, that's got so much salt in it and all the chemicals. And don't drink that stuff." But I love that like sour, salty, tangy flavor. So for me, kombucha was like, there was a real vibration there.
When was this that you got into it?
It was 2003.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been, 10 years.
I know. How does that happen, right?
How does that happen? How did you guys first discover kombucha?
Well, let's see. How did I discover it? I think I may have heard it from David Wolf, actually, about just mentioning the word. And, that word is just such a strange word. And so I had heard about it for a few years. And then finally I thought, you know what? I've been into this raw food thing. I've been into this health thing for so long. It's time to actually make this stuff. And so about a year ago, or maybe
probably a couple.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I started to do some research, and I stumbled onto kombuchacamp.com.
Woohoo!
And then I thought, this person is really serious, and this is her whole deal is kombucha. So she must be the gurus, right? So I read a bunch of your articles and watched a bunch of your videos. I actually was introduced to one of your videos where you did, I forget, like a home class for people, and it looks a little bit older. And I went through that video and learned how to make kombucha, and got the SCOBY and did the whole thing, and just been in love with it ever since.
Well, that video series in particular, it was shot in 2007, and it was for one of those, video instruction sites that I think has ultimately been bought by, I'm going to get this wrong, eHow or something. It's one of the big ones out there now that has it. But we have educated so many people just through those video series. I mean,
wow.
It's got over 1 million hits worldwide. So, and that's Kombucha Camp. The whole reason it's camp is because when I went, as I'm making the kombucha at home, I really love it. I'm very into the process of it, and I'm reading the information about it online and running into like fear and danger and warning. And here's this thing I've been cultivating and I receive benefit from, and I'm like, this is crazy. What is all this misinformation about kombucha out there? So that was why we started Kombucha Camp, was to have real information, science-based information for people to understand what kombucha is and why you shouldn't be afraid of it. Are you afraid of yogurt? Are you afraid of sauerkraut? Do these things strike fear into your heart just hearing about them? But for some reason, kombucha, because of its funky shape and interesting yeast strands, inspires fear in a lot of people.
What were some of the things that you were reading that were talking about the fear and all that?
Well, specifically, there's one thing on the internet that says in 1995, 2 women in Iowa who had been also making kombucha, one of them got very ill and the other passed away. And there was a diagnosis done, and they even tested the kombucha and found there was nothing in the kombucha. And the woman who passed away had a perforated intestine. So she already had a really intense health problem, and yet, it's so easy. Like, oh, what's the weird thing I've never heard of? Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Totally.
The kombucha. Even though they do the follow-up testing, and in the end, they acquit it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
The kombucha is never found to have been the cause, but it just hangs out in the internet, and people will go to this one thing, look at these, one example of one person who potentially had any kind of ill effect, and hold that up as like why you should never drink kombucha. And
wow, I'd never heard of that before. That's crazy.
No, it is crazy. But like the Mayo Clinic doesn't recommend it, or even some of those folks out there who I've considered to be, alternative health gurus, Andrew Weil, have said, oh, we don't recommend making kombucha, it's dangerous. And, just like preparing any food in a kitchen, it's as dangerous as that. Are you constantly worried every time you go to prepare a meal in the kitchen? It's, you just have to observe good sanitation and be smart. It's just, I think it just strikes fear in people because we're not used to dealing with our fermented foods anymore. I mean, these are our tradition. This is what humanity evolved with. We didn't have refrigerators however many years ago. They've only been around 100, 150 years. And how is it we kept our food preserved through the winters? How is it that we derived nutrition? It was through consuming bacteria-rich foods. And so in our processed foods industry, in our industrial foods environment that we live in, where, the whole purpose of our processed foods industry is quantity, right? We got to keep them buying, keep them consuming, keep them wanting more. Well, how do you do that? You take the nutrients out. Because why do we eat? We eat because we require certain enzymes and nutrients that our bodies can't make itself in order to catalyze all of the actions in our body that allow us to function. Now, of course, we also eat for social reasons, and we eat because it tastes good. But when we lose contact with the real reason of why we eat, what happens is you end up eating quantity and not quality. And so considering the source is really important, and including these fermented foods. I mean, they were our condiments, your sauerkrauts, your salsas, your chutneys. These are the things that literally provided zip and life and energy, and they performed a digestive function.
Yeah, I mean, because how did people eat all through the winter? And I hear that a lot of the people that were on the boats coming over with Columbus lived on sauerkraut, right? And,
otherwise you end up with scurvy, right? That was the whole problem, is you had to have vitamin C. Well, our fermented foods are actually very rich in vitamins, and they're very small amounts. So it's not like, if you were to go to the USRDA of, vitamin X, it wouldn't have whatever that recommended daily allowance is. But those small amounts of minerals and vitamins are in a living form.
Right.
Yeah, it's really kind of a unique flavor. And do you think that a lot of the store-bought options are too sweet?
Yes.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? They're good. That's the problem. They're good, but they're too sweet.
There's been an interesting trend since the reformulation. In 2010, the kombuchas were taken off of the shelves, and many of the manufacturers were forced to reformulate in order to fit kind of an artificial construct, basically being the alcohol is a 0.5% limit, and that was set at Prohibition by Volstead. And based on what science, I haven't been able to uncover, but kombucha can contain up to 2% alcohol when flavored and added, fruit and things like that with it, but no more than. It's self-limiting. Moreover, this alcohol is what I think of as healthy low alcohol, meaning that historically, people consumed beverages that had these small trace amounts of alcohol, and they even gave them to children, but they were never more than 2%, and they serve a different function. Like, how much kombucha would you have to drink in order to get drunk?
Yeah. It seems like everyone, in today's world, everything has to be regulated and based on fear, like you're talking about earlier, with people being afraid of making these kinds of things. And, it just really takes the power out of people's hands. People should be taking care of their own health. They should be making their own food, growing their own food, working with their own food. And to always look to outside government regulations or companies to tell you what you should be doing is, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right, Our
culture and society initially had this very paternalistic, the government took care of us, and it made sure that we had 8-hour working day or whatever it was. It made sure that we were cared for in our social structure. And now with the corporatization of everything, it's for the benefit of the corporation, not for the benefit of the people. And when you have profits over people, you're focusing on the wrong thing, right? Because what motivates you isn't, is everyone in my business cared for? Does everyone have a pension or a retirement plan? Does everyone have health insurance? Are people paid a living wage? And because we don't see that in our system anymore, so we're struggling with this old idea of, well, they're here to protect us and take care of us, coupled with this new idea of, in fact, the corporations are all lying and manipulating you. So you're in this confusing space of, well, what do I believe? You have certain information coming from the government about what's healthy. You have other information coming from advertisers about what's healthy. And you're in the middle feeling sick and not knowing, what the heck do I eat?
Yeah.
Totally.
I think that kind of confusion has been really difficult, and that's why people gravitate towards kombucha, because when they start receiving, and again, I'll go back to this, in this living form, when you're receiving that nutrition in a form your body can actually use, you feel the benefit immediately, right? Because, think about like vitamin A in carrots. Like if we took the vitamin A out of the carrot and put it into a chemical form and consume that, what else is in the carrot that we need to process that vitamin A? What else is in the carrot that helps our bodies to absorb that in a particular fashion? The more we know, the less we know. So although we've made all these strides in terms of understanding nutrition and information and things like that, what we've lost is the ways in which we ate it throughout time, right?
Right.
The reason we put butter on our vegetables was because they are fat soluble. Those vitamins are fat soluble, so we need the fat from the butter to help our bodies to absorb that. And in terms of kombucha and fermented foods, the pH that they're creating is so low that it prevents colonization from harmful microorganisms, and that pH acts as if it were stomach acid. It literally pre-digests whatever you're feeding it and makes it that much easier for your body to absorb. So in the case of kombucha, and why it has such tremendous benefits, is it's made with tea. You Google tea on tea and health, tea and cancer, you find so much research has already been done on the health benefits of tea. So now we're taking that tea and fermenting it, making it even easier for our bodies to absorb those polyphenols, those antioxidants, the catechins, the L-theanine, and use that in a really beneficial way.
Yeah, it's such a great food, and we love it. We are with Hannah Crum, and we got to take a short break, Hannah, but we'll be right back. Her website, make sure to visit that too. It's kombuchacamp.com, and that's with 2 Ks, Kombucha Camp. And we'll be right back after this break. Toxins or chemicals in our daily life, it seems like we're exposed to them no matter what we do in our lives, from paint fumes to mercury fillings, coal-fired plants, perfumes, soaps, off-gassing of carpets in our houses, and genetically modified foods, and foods that are sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, the xenoestrogens in plastics and car exhaust, secondhand smoke, even your dry cleaning and laundry detergents, even your mattresses have chemicals inside them that outgas. So getting these toxins and chemicals and poisons out of your bloodstream and out of your fat cells is going to be really critical moving forward in our society, because it seems like every year there's more and more chemicals that keep becoming introduced with new products in the market. So I would consider getting one of these far infrared saunas. We've got a great sauna developed by Phil Wilson, and I've known about his work for many, many years, and I'm so proud to be offering his sauna on our website. And he's been in this business since 1975. And this sauna is really great because it slows the aging process. It helps with weight loss and burning calories. I think you can burn like 600 calories in 15 or 20 minutes, and it helps to cleanse the skin. It improves your sleep and helps to prevent illnesses like flus and colds, as well as energizing the body. And it's great for improving blood circulation and promoting cellular renewal, as well as increasing metabolism and inducing profuse sweating. And it's really, really great. And the great thing is too, is you don't produce any lactic acid. So you can sweat without producing any of this lactic acid that you would normally produce if you lifted weights or went for a big long run. So if you're interested in this, you can check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna. It's great because it sets up in about 2 to 5 minutes, and it's portable, and it's super easy to clean. It's got low electromagnetic field radiation coming off of it, and it produces energy and heat inside the sauna evenly. It's great machine. So if you're interested in sweating like this for only 15 minutes a day, it's great. It requires 0 preheating. It's got a 1-year warranty, and Phil Wilson is a great guy. We're so proud to be offering his saunas on our website. So if you're interested, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna, or you could check it out in our store, and it's $990 plus $25 shipping. And that's really a good deal because many of the saunas out there, you can check them out. They're in the thousands of dollars, $2,000 to $4,000. So this is great. You can buy it through PayPal. You don't even need a PayPal account. It's 100% secure. So consider doing this if you're interested in living a long, healthy, disease-free life. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna. good time here with Hannah Crum from kombuchacamp.com. That's with 2 Ks, kombuchacamp.com. And later in the show, we're going to be getting into how to make kombucha and kind of teaching our listeners, teaching all of you how to make this stuff. It's pretty amazing things, and we'll get into the benefits of it and all kinds of stuff like that. But I think, Kate, you had a question for Hannah, right?
Oh, yeah. Hey, real quick, Hannah, when we were talking a minute ago about the kombuchas sold in the stores and things, like sometimes we're in a hurry or we'll be on a road trip or whatever, and we'll get a bottle of it, and, you know, it's pretty good tasting. In your opinion and your knowledge, is there anything beneficial to those at all in the grocery store, or are you just basically drinking overpriced sugar water?
No, I mean, it's good, better, best, right?
Yeah,
when it
right.
comes to making choices. You know, if you're making good choices, you want to make better ones. If you're making better choices, you want to make best ones. So
Right.
While you're traveling, a kombucha is certainly going to be a better choice, if not a best choice, compared to sodas, energy drinks, etc.
Right.
So you're still going to derive a benefit from it. The problem is, as you mentioned, they are more on the sweeter side. Since the reformulation, as we mentioned, they have shifted to a more sweeter flavor to attract a more mainstream audience. And unfortunately, at least in my experience, in my opinion, that just kind of sells out kombucha a little bit because, at least for me, part of what I love is that sourness. And it's that sourness that lets you know you're getting the healthy acids that help your body to detox, which is why most people are drinking the kombucha in the first place. But yeah, there certainly is a benefit. I will say some of the commercial brands are adding probiotic supplements to it. So, you know, that may, depending on how you feel about that, that may be a positive or whatever. So they are including that in some of those. But again, good, better, best.
Right.
Choosing store-bought kombucha is going to be a better choice over nearly anything else you can purchase out there. But of course, making it at home, you have full control over the process. You decide how sweet or sour it is based on your personal preference. And because, you know, anything you infuse into the kombucha, as you may have observed, do you flavor your kombucha?
We have, you know, on our Facebook site, we have a picture of a bunch of kombucha that we flavored, and it's just amazing when we do that. But I just want to drink it so bad. I'm usually too lazy to flavor.
Well, you may have noticed that the color of whatever if it's strawberries, for instance, it turns your kombucha bright pink. And the reason for that is kombucha is it's sucking the guts. It's sucking all the good stuff out of those strawberries and passing it on to you in the final brew. So, if you're into herbalism or using herbs, kombucha can be a great way to deliver that herbal nutrition. Again, by fermenting it, you put it into that form that's easier for your body to absorb. So you have so much more flexibility and fun and experimentation. And, I know I get into a recipe and I'll just make that same flavor for a long time. And then all of a sudden I'll have an inspiration and shift gears. So like right now, one of my favorite flavors is, I call it Rise and Shine. It's ginger, turmeric, and bee pollen.
Wow.
And the turmeric gives it this kind of like citrusy flavor to it. So I love mixing it with orange juice, or I make a really yummy cocktail with it with some Saint Germain. I love kombucha cocktails, by the way. It's like a little antidote with your poison, so to speak.
I love that. I think I've seen a video where you talk about that. It's great.
That's right.
You know, another thing to be aware of for people is when they're buying the store-bought kombucha, this is something that just popped into my mind recently, is what kind of water are these companies using as a starting base? Because I mean, there's no way of knowing, I guess, unless you contact the company. They may be using just regular tap water, right?
Well, it's all the ingredients, right? What kind of tea, what kind of sugar, part of why we're drinking kombucha is for that detox benefit. And when you consider there's over 80,000 chemicals in consumer products alone, not to mention in the air and the water and everywhere else, I mean, our bodies really need that regular benefit of getting rid of all that gunk. Mm-hmm. That's really what's causing so many of the autoimmune diseases and things like that, is basically our bodies are saying, hey, I can't handle all this toxicity, but you're not giving me a break. And that's where I think we see a manifestation of so many of these illnesses. And that's why something like a kombucha or seemingly benefits so many different types of illnesses, because when you look at the root cause, it's diet and stress.
Right.
If you go to that root cause and deal with the root cause as opposed to just dealing with the symptoms on the outside, you really get to those symptoms then start to disappear because you've gotten to the heart of the matter as opposed to just dealing with the after effects.
Right. It's interesting. I was on your website and you have a really great page for people that are interested called The Health Benefits of Kombucha. And man, it just lists, I'm not even sure how many this is, but it alkalizes the body, detoxifies the liver. It's high in antioxidants, polyphenols. It's great for eyesight and eczema. It's just amazing how great kombucha is for people, isn't it? When you make it right, I should say.
That's right. And I hate to come off and sound like snake oil, like it slices, it dices, it juliennes. The one thing it won't do is make itself. So you are still an integral part of that process. But that being said, like I just said, the root cause. And again, as we discussed, the tea, as we know, is already so healthy for you. So now you're just taking that, making it even easier for your body to use it. And, what happens is, when we detoxify those chemicals out of our body, it's not the kombucha doing the work. The kombucha is doing the detox part, but then your body, we have such a powerful immune system. I mean, think about it. We're regenerating new cells on a daily basis. And part of what we've been taught is that regeneration isn't possible, that we need to, like spare parts, replace everything. But if we come with a more holistic perspective on our bodies and how our systems are working, we have a really amazing immune system. I mean, we have new skin cells every 7 days, a whole new layer of skin. Our hair is constantly growing. If you cut the liver in half, it'll regenerate. I mean, our bodies are really these tremendous powerhouses. But if they don't have the nutrition they need, they can't function at that optimum level. And when you look at not just our diet, but even historically how we've started to lose our bacteriological heritage. Women aren't having vaginal births as much, which is where we get our first inoculation of that bacteria as we're coming through the vaginal canal. And in fact, the bacteria in the vaginal canal change and shift into bacteria that help you process milk, which is your first food. So, I mean, it's just tremendous how the body shifts and changes in order to create this optimum, growing place. And when we lose that through the medicalization of birth, and when we lose that because we're not breastfeeding our children and we're told formula is a better option, or, all these kinds of little things have eroded our bacteriological heritage. And this is why we're not as healthy as our ancestors were. And, so reclaiming that, it's possible to really change that even in your lifetime. So even if you have a quote-unquote genetic predisposition, part of the science that's coming out on epigenetics is that, in fact, we influence our gene expression through our diet and stress. When we're in stressful environments and we're creating a lot of cortisol, that will affect the genes in a different way than if you're engaging in stress-releasing activities or consuming foods that benefit your system. So really exciting to know how much control we have, but then again, it also means we have to take responsibility. It means now we are in charge of our health. We are in charge of what happens to us in that way. Of course, there's external factors we can't control, but for the most part, and that's really where the education comes in and why it's so great to have voices like yours that are putting that information out there, making it accessible for people. And that's really what our passion is to a Kombucha Camp. It's information. We know that educating somebody when they understand how this works and how it can benefit them, that's all the information you need, right? Instead of shrouding things in mystery or making it difficult or pretending it's harder than it is, it doesn't benefit anybody. When you come to realize how easy it is, and you guys are making your own kombucha, how easy is it for you?
It's pretty darn easy, really, when you just learn how to do it. We just watched your videos, actually, and when you learn how to do it, it's really easy. It only takes... We just do ours depending on the time of year, once a month, and it's nice and sour. And I mean, it's a heck of a lot better than buying probiotic supplements, don't you think?
I think, but that's me. And part of what I think that is, and considering the source, is it in a living form or is it in a pill form where it may or may not survive into your digestive tract, right? And it's also diversity. I mean, you look outside your window or even in just walking on the street, you have how many different types of grass with birds, with insects, with trees, with, nature is diverse. We don't ever find just one thing existing all by itself. There's always lots of things with it. And that's why kombucha and kefir and yogurt and just getting all different types of probiotics in your diet, healthy bacteria from these natural sources, is going to boost your immunity in so many ways. Again, with this knowledge we have where this concept of nutritionism where, I know I need this one specific thing, right? I'll get people asking, does your kombucha have S. boulardii? Because I've heard that this specific yeast helps with candida. And it's like, Well, that might be one of how many other things we don't even know that are part of that process. So by diversifying the types and the sources of fermented foods you're putting in your body, you're just allowing your body to pick and choose what it needs in order to heal itself. And that's why we say trust your gut, because your gut, Justin, is going to be different from my gut. It's going to be different from your gut, Katie. And, we have to listen to our bodies. And this is the research that's coming out of things like the Human Microbiome Project. Are you familiar with that?
No. What is that? The Human Microbe?
Biome. So your microbiome is basically your gut.
Okay.
And this evolved out of the Human Genome Project that we mentioned earlier, but what they discovered is how important bacteria are. And so they realized there's this whole rainforest of bacteria living in our guts, and we don't even necessarily know what it does. So they're in the process of looking at people's gut bacteria. They're realizing that everybody has a unique signature in terms of their bacterial colonies living in there, and they're trying to make correlations. They haven't totally figured out what's correlation, what's causation, what's just there, but trying to understand. So certain types of bacteria help you digest certain types of food. And so this kind of plays into that concept of, certain people can get different energy from different types of foods. It's
really amazing when you think about, too, just how important the gut bacteria is for our immune system. And you kind of realize that it actually is our immune system to some degree. I mean, I've heard people have talked about it as being up to 80% of our immune system. And so when you think about the onslaught that happens with people with antibiotics and antibacterial soaps and hand creams and everything that they do, it almost seems as if the people in our culture have, I think I heard a study where they have less than 30% of the amount of bacteria that they should. And that's probably why we're getting so sick too.
Sure. I mean, you can look at numerous examples. Now they're starting to do fecal transplants, which sounds gross, but basically they're taking healthy bacteria from one person's gut and putting it right into another person, and they're finding they're having tremendous success. So, a lot of people will say the gut is your second brain. I think it's your first brain. I mean, it has more neurotransmitters than your brain. They are connected. And the way in which we sense things, right? You have a gut instinct. You trust your gut. It's because we're able to perceive certain information on that level with those neurotransmitters that maybe our brain doesn't cognitively recognize until after the fact, right? Someone will give you a weird vibe or whatever, and later on you'll be like, oh, it's because this, this, and this. But instinctually, on that level, you knew. And how is it you know? We can get into some of my more interesting theories about this, but one theory is this concept of bacterial intelligence. And the way in which bacteria communicate is called quorum sensing. So I don't totally understand, but basically there's like a chemical that's sent out and they communicate, and they'll be able to mobilize all at once. And I feel like when you colonize your gut in a healthy way, you can really feel that in somebody else. And that's that, like, when you just have a vibe with somebody or whatever, that's kind of, in my opinion, what's going on is those healthy bacteria are sensing each other and they're giving you information.
Ooh, I like that. Do you have more theories like that? That's awesome.
I do. This one isn't my theory, but there is another theory of bacterial intelligence, which is that bacteria crashed here from outer space, right, however long ago, and they've been evolving over time to create these human vehicles to ultimately build them rocket ships to take them back home.
Wow. That sounds like the Terrence McKenna kind of stuff.
Well, right. I mean, like I said, it's not my theory. It's an interesting one. And
interesting.
Who knows? I feel like the more we know, the less we know.
Wow.
And that constantly learning how much more infinitely amazing our world is. And that's part of where kombucha is leading me to, is this, I'm calling it re-evolution, right? So revolution is just, in my opinion, at this point, a turn around the same wheel. We've kind of been in these places before. We've been in these social structures before. Obviously, the external trappings are different. We have different types of machines and houses and whatnot. But essentially, kind of our human structures have been the same. And so re-evolution is a way of reaching back to our ancient wisdom, coupling it with our modern scientific information and studying and techniques, and creating novel applications that we use consciously to, instead of depleting the earth and taking things from the earth, but to rebuild the earth.
Wow.
So whether so here's some for instances with the kombucha culture. They're starting to grow, or there's already a company that makes a living bandage out of our same bacteria, Acetobacter xylinum, and they apply it to large open wounds, burns, and basically it'll fuse to the wound. It's porous enough that it allows for oxygen. It's almost like a living scab. And they've had great success with that. And because of the pH of the culture, it also serves an antiseptic benefit. So like you mentioned before, the eczema, you can apply the culture topically. You can apply it to burns and to wounds. We've also seen people creating masks. In Japan and Korea, they sell masks in little pre-packed packages, and again, it's just Acetobacter xylinum, which is the cellulose, which is what grows our SCOBY. Wow. The SCOBY is our symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So these are the bacteria that build that cellulose structure. They use them on their faces. Wow. So how they build the cellulose in the first place is the bacteria throw out these nanofibers of that create the cellulose, and what they do when you put them on their faces, they pull circulation to the surface of your skin, which helps to regenerate the skin cells. The pH also sloughs off the dead skin cells. And then the bacteria itself, those nanofibers start to fill in the fine lines and wrinkles.
Wow. Golly, that's so amazing. In the world? So you can make lots of different things with the SCOBY. What would you do? Kind of blend it up and make a paste out of it? Or how would you do that?
We have a lot of these recipes on the blog. So Kombucha Camp, and that's camp.com, as you mentioned. If you go to our blog, there's the first thing I recommend you do is sign up for our free ebook. It's a 5-day email series, one a day for 5 days, just giving you the basics on kombucha, talking about those health benefits and things like that. And then also you receive our DIY recipe guide. So it's really easy to make it at home. And then if you go to the blog, there's a little Google search bar. You can type in search terms. We've got lots of like skincare recipes, flavoring recipes, food recipes, because kombucha is so versatile. When it gets to that more vinegar state, like when it's too sour to drink, you can also use it like vinegar. So, really there's no waste using. Yeah. And I think we're going to see a lot more novel uses. I don't know if you saw Suzanne Lee's talk at the TED conference, but she grew the SCOBYs and turned them into fabric and made clothes out of them.
What?
Wow. Really? Wow. I don't even understand how that could be possible.
I don't know where to go with that.
Wow.
Like in leather substitute.
What?
Chickens love to eat them. Livestock love it. They trust their instincts and they sense a good thing, and that healthy bacteria helps to keep them in balance. Wow. The soil loves it. If you have plants that love an acid pH, like roses, put a little dilute the kombucha in water, or that's a great way to get rid of some of your old SCOBYs is grind them up and put them in the soil. Many people have found that they really help repopulate the soil in a great way.
Wow, that is just so amazing. So many great uses for the SCOBY and the kombucha itself, and even if it ferments for too long, and great stuff. We're with Hannah Crum, and don't forget to check out her website, kombuchacamp.com. And I learned how to make kombucha from her. She, I think, in my opinion, is one of the world's authorities on kombucha. I think she's just
the queen of kombucha.
Just a powerhouse of knowledge. And sign up for her email list too. And we learned how to flavor our kombucha with her articles and her videos and all kinds of good stuff on kombuchacamp.com. And we'll be right back with Hannah Crum right after this break. So rebounding is, in my mind, one of the best ways to detoxify your lymphatic system, and it's the only exercise on earth that will actually detoxify your lymphatic system. And your lymph system is responsible for storing toxins and chemicals and poisons that you're exposed to, and there's no pump for the lymph system. It doesn't have a heart, so you have to move it up and down, and it's filled with millions of one-way valves that get squeezed and pushed and opened and closed every time you jump. And we feel like we found the best rebounder on the market today. It's the Rolls Royce of rebounding. It's called the Bellicon, and I highly stand behind this product. It's absolutely amazing. If you want to hear what some of our guests said about it, check them out on our store. You can listen to what a lot of our guests have said about rebounding, and the Bellicon in particular. So a lot of times people will go on the rebounder with oxygen for cancer if they're really sick, and it's one of the most powerful things you can do to cleanse your body and to exercise every single cell in your body, every organ in your body. It's the only internal organ exercise you could do. and it's absolutely incredible. It also helps to rebuild bone density because of the up and down motion, the G-force that gets applied to every cell of your body, and it tightens and tones your body, and it's just really, really great aerobic exercise. And the Bellicon is made with straps, these bungee cords instead of springs, so it's silent, and they have a warranty on it. It's the best rebounder on the market today. So if you're in the market for one, I would highly recommend just saving up and getting the Bellicon, because there's no other rebounder on the market that's better than this thing. I firmly believe that. So if you're interested in it, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. That's B as in boy, ELLICON. And you can learn more about it and watch the videos on that page too. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy your rebounder, and we'll catch you on the next episode. All right, we're having a good time with Hannah Crum from kombuchacamp.com, and we're just kind of learning all about the role of bacteria and kombucha and the yeast and why it's so good for us and different uses. I feel like we can talk for days on different types of conditions it would be good for, but I think, Kate, you had some questions about how to make it, right?
Yeah, Hannah, I'm just curious. I'm super blessed to be with somebody who is kind of in charge of taking these things on. And I remember just walking into the kitchen and the kombucha was already going. And I just kind of jumped on the wagon midway through. But say I just came from Mars and just landed and don't know a thing about kombucha. How would I get started, or anybody out there that has no idea where to even start this process?
Sure. Justin, let me ask you, how do you make kombucha? What's the first thing you do?
Well, what we did is...
you did.
Well, yeah, what I did, I guess, is we just buy the green tea, and then, let's see, we get the green tea, we get some water, and then I'm trying to think of the process because I'm not all the way...
Boil the water. Basically, you make tea.
That's
it. You boil the water, you add the tea, and then you add in your sugar.
Right.
Then our method, we do what we call a shortcut method, whereby we haven't heated up all of the water. So let's say you're doing a gallon batch. Instead of heating up a whole gallon, because the culture is temperature sensitive, the yeast specifically are temperature sensitive, we don't want to just chuck our SCOBY into a boiling pot of tea. So we make a concentrate of the tea and sugar, and all of this is provided for you in the DIY guide when you sign up at the website. But once you make that sweet tea solution, then we add water to bring the temperature down quickly, and that concentrated then is throughout the gallon. And then we're able to immediately add our culture and 1 cup of our starter liquid. So we always want to be pulling our starter liquid from the top of the batch, and that's so that we can have the bacteria rich. So it's a symbiotic culture, bacteria and yeast, but we need to help moderate their relationship, because they're still in competition, and the bacteria want to dominate the yeast, and the yeast want to dominate the bacteria. And there's ways in which, techniques we can use in order to help maintain the proper balance.
And you do about a cup of the starter liquid, is that right?
Yeah, that's what you want, at least a cup per gallon. So using that same type of logic, if you're doing a larger vessel, or our favorite way to make kombucha is continuous brew, which are done in our 2.5 crocks. We have modern porcelain crocks, we have oak barrels, we have custom crocks available. So we have a lot of different vessel choices. But when we make that larger batch, we're going to want at least 1 culture per gallon. So we use 2 cultures, we use 2 cups of starter liquid. And then once you're in the continuous flow, you only have to come in and clean it once every few months. It simplifies the whole process. There's no extra jars, there's no extra funnels, and you just pour it right out of the spigot, right into your glass, or right into your vessels, and you can flavor like that. So,
I like that. I should try the continuous method. I hear people have really great success with it. I have good success with the other method too, but I think it would be much simpler.
It's much simpler, and it's healthier. There are certain acids, because it's a symbiotic cycle. So basically, the yeast get to work consuming the sugar right away, right? So you heard it's made with sugar. Kombucha is made with sugar. But then when you drink it, does it taste sweet?
It does not, unless you don't ferment it long enough.
That's exactly right. So the sugar gets fermented and converted. Many people are like, oh, no, sugar, I can't have sugar. Well, don't worry. The kombucha will, in fact, turn off your sugar-loving taste buds. It actually does the opposite, which is why it's good for things for like diabetes and candida and stuff like that. People who have had those ailments, when they do a really long ferment on their kombucha, they find that it has a benefit in that way.
It's very cleansing as well, right, to the digestive tract and things?
That's right. So first the yeast, they consume the sugar and they create ethanol and CO2, which is our carbon dioxide. Now the bacteria come in and they consume the ethanol and convert that into the healthy acids. So it's a twofold process, and that's why the acid expression peaks at 14 and again at 30 days. And many of the brands used to say fermented for 30 days, and that was because of those healthy acids are expressed later in the process. So in the continuous brew, we get that benefit of the longer fermentation time, more of those acids present, but we're tempering the flavor by adding the sweet tea. So once you get the whole thing set up, you only drain a portion of it off. Instead of like in a batch method, you're emptying the whole gallon and then restarting that whole gallon. In our larger vessels, we only drain off, a half gallon to a gallon at the most, and then we top that off with sweet tea. And in this way, we keep the process going, but we get the full acid expression and more of the benefits. You temper the flavor. If you go on vacation, your cultures just hang out in there and they're in a pH-protected environment. You dictate the pace because you're deciding when to add that top-off tea, and that kind of helps you figure out when do I want to be bottling next. So you really get to individualize your process in the continuous brew method, which is why we love it so much.
That is so cool. So in what ways could people mess this up?
If it's too cold, so we're so trained to think that everything goes in the fridge and that's how we keep it protected. But what protects the kombucha is its pH environment and the SCOBY itself. The SCOBY is a lid, and it grows to the size of the vessel, and it basically prevents other microorganisms from co-colonizing. But if we try to brew our kombucha at too low of a temperature, the yeast may not have their ability to convert the sugar and create the low pH required to prevent other microorganisms from colonizing. And of course, sanitary conditions. We need to be mindful of, washing our hands and and all of those things while preparing kombucha so that we don't allow any other outside elements to get in there. But typically, it's really safe. Have you ever had mold, Justin?
Yeah, actually we have, and I think it was because I let it go for too long. I really like to make sure it's nice and fermented, and I think it was because I let it go for too long. Is that one of the reasons why mold may grow, do you think?
In fact, it would be the opposite. So mold is going to appear early on because once it's at that pH-protected environment, nothing can co-colonize with it. So kombucha has been shown through, in some research papers, to kill E. coli on contact. So it has this that acidic pH really prevents it. So typically what happens if it's not cold enough or if there's not enough starter liquid for the amount of sweet tea you're trying to convert, it's really all about that pH. If you're not able to achieve that pH as quickly as you need to, that's when you may end up with mold.
Oh, I see.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Now, do you know if you do a fermentation of kombucha and you add different flavors, like say you want to do a strawberry puree or you want to do some different flavorings, does that bring out different cultures of bacteria, do you think?
Well, I'm probably not in an already fermented kombucha. Some people do use the fruit sugars as a substrate. I mean, again, it's all about what are your inputs to equal your outputs. So what I mean by substrate is the sweet tea solution. But that can vary. You could use black tea. You could use green tea. In my Hannah Special Tea Blend, which makes the most delicious tasting kombucha in the world and is also great by the glass, it has black tea, green tea, white tea, rooibos, yerba mate. So you're getting all these different flavors and health benefits out of those types of blends. And then what types of sugar are you using? If you use cane sugar versus a honey versus a molasses, you're going to get a different flavor, different mineral profile, right? So like a molasses is going to be higher in your calcium and phosphorus. So if you use that, you get a different flavor. You may have a different brewing time, but you'll also have those attendant minerals present. So the really cool thing about Rich is it's so experimental and flexible. Once you learn the rules, and that's kind of what we do, is try to teach you the basic principles, and then we encourage you to experiment. I mean, there's people out there who want to be purists, and it can only be made this way, only with this type of tea, only with this type of water, but we understand that as part of nature, we're dynamic, we're evolving, and that there's room for variation, and that's cool. More than cool, it's awesome, it's acceptable, it's what we're striving towards, instead of just doing things the same way. But we have to understand why we do them in the way we do.
Right.
And then we can experiment from there.
I'm sure you might answer this on your website questions, but is there any way in which you can make it with the tea that you get caffeinated?
Well, yeah, I mean, caffeine is part of what the culture needs in order to do the proper fermentation. So, in fact, the question I normally get is, how do you make it with tea that isn't as caffeinated? Because many are caffeine sensitive. And here's the thing to think about. So, normally when you have a cup of tea, it's 1 tea bag to 6 to 8 ounces of water. When we make the kombucha, we're using 3 to 5 tea bags per gallon of kombucha. Right, so we're not using nearly the same ratio of tea to water. Moreover, the fermentation process converts some of that caffeine so that you're not getting an intense, it doesn't give you that spiky thing like coffee does. So,
gotcha. Okay, cool. Wow, interesting.
So with the kombucha, then you think that when it grows a little bit of fuzz on top of the SCOBY, is the SCOBY no longer good, or is the kombucha bad at that point? Because I know that's happened. I've seen that on your community. You have a whole community on your website where people ask questions. And is the kombucha itself bad if there's mold that grows on top of the SCOBY?
Great question. So typically when dealing with mold, if you think about mold is going to be fuzzy, it's going to be on top of the culture. A lot of people mistake new culture growth for mold because the yeast comes up to the surface and it looks like a brain. It's like this brown glob. It sometimes looks greenish or black or whatever. Many people get freaked out by the appearance of this yeast brain. Beneath the culture. And of course, the culture doesn't just pop out fully formed. It starts as a few dots and a skin forms, and then it slowly thickens from there. So what you're looking at can be a little confusing at first. Now, mold is always going to be on top. It'll be fuzzy. It'll be black. It'll be blue. It'll look like bread, basically.
Sorry, Hannah, you said it would look like, you cut out for just a second. It would look like what?
Bread mold.
Bread mold.
Right.
You seem like it's blue or whatever, and it's black and fuzzy, and with bread mold, sometimes you just pick the mold off and you still eat the bread.
Right.
Right? But with kombucha, we don't want to do that because, the mold spores, even though they may not be apparent on the mother and are only on the baby, because they've already gotten in the pH, you don't want to risk it. So we just throw everything away and we start with a fresh culture from our SCOBY hotel. And the nice thing is, because the kombucha culture reproduces, it's so hardy, you'll have extras. And that's why we make a hotel in the first place, is so that should anything happen or we get mold or whatever happens, at least we have some backups available. We can just grab one from the hotel and get started again.
So would you recommend, if someone wants to start doing this, would you recommend they start doing the continuous brew process or the process that I started with, and probably you did too, just the conventional way?
Well, it really depends on your level of where you're at. It's just like investing in any piece of equipment, whether that's a blender or a dehydrator or whatever. Once you have that piece of equipment, it makes those things much less expensive to produce, right? So in the case of kombucha, if you're into the kombucha, the continuous brew is a great way to get started. Like, it's less mess, it's less hassle, it's higher in nutrients, you can control the flavor and process, and it's just a lot of fun. Plus, when you get our continuous brew packages, you get wonderful support materials, you get videos that specifically walk you through every step of the process. I'm on the screen walking you through the whole process, making it super easy for you. We've had so many newbies write in and say, wow, just made this so simple and so easy to do. I'm so glad I did the continuous brew right away. And that being said, we invent products. We invented our cloth covers and our cozies. We've invented heating systems. So we're really trying to make this process fun, easy, accessible to anyone who wants to do it.
Now, would you suggest not sharing your starter with other people because of the bacteria in your own home is supposed to kind of stay there, or is it kind of safe to get other people going and share it that way?
This is traditionally how fermented foods have always been. They've always been shared and passed around and given to friends. What I wouldn't recommend is using a commercial brand to start a SCOBY. Again, because of that reformulation process, because some people are adding different bacteria that aren't native to the kombucha culture or supplements, you're not going to get an authentic kombucha brew from that. And many people have said that when they grow one from a bottle versus when they use one of our SCOBYs, the flavor is just, our SCOBYs just make delicious, healthy, tasty kombucha. And you have kombucha in 7 days as opposed to waiting however long it takes for that SCOBY to grow. And then, in the meantime, you're still buying all that commercial kombucha. You might as well just get it started right away. And again, because they reproduce, you literally have a lifetime supply.
I love it. So
cool.
we got to head out, Hannah, but I wanted to get one quick tip because I know you have, I think, 2 or 3 really good articles on your website about how to make fizz, and everyone wants to know, how do I get it fizzy? So what are some of the different flavoring combinations you found to get things nice and fizzy?
Well, so like you were saying, you like to ferment your kombucha so it's nice and sour. At that point, all of the sugar's been converted, which means the yeast have nothing to turn into the CO2, which is the gas. So by adding any kind of fruit sugar through natural fruit flavors, like baking a cake, the best ingredients are going to make the best product. When you put in something, a quality sugar, then you're going to get delicious fizz. So whether that's a strawberry, we've also found that ginger, the rhizomes, and I think this is because they grow underground, they have their own bacteria on them, but they make really great fizz. And, the fizz really has to do with the yeast. So there's a lot of different ways in which we can moderate that, but some of the really quick, easy ways, and then cover it, cap it, because CO2 is a gas. If you leave it open, then that gas can dissipate. If you cap it, then that gas stays in there. Now, then there's also the concept of explosions. You want to be careful. So whether you store them in a cooler box so that should an explosion occur, at least it's in a safe place where nobody gets hurt, or every day you come and you just twist those caps open, allow that gas to release, and then close it back up. That's called burping your bottles. Those are 2 ways in which you can help make sure you don't have any accidents. Although plenty of people have had geysers. I get so many pictures of fruit on ceilings from people opening their kombuchas and it just exploding everywhere. So
that's great. Wow.
Oh, man.
Wow. So, I would recommend if you are learning or want to learn more about this, go to Kombucha Camp and learn all about this from Hannah. She's got a store with lots of great products, like she was talking about the continuous brewer vessel. She's got the heating things, and she's got the SCOBYs themselves, as well as an entire community on her website where you can go and get support from other people and figure out what the heck that thing is in your vessel that you have no idea what it looks like. And you can join that, and there's a lot of good stuff there, right?
Sorry to interrupt. If you're in Southern California and Los Angeles area, we do have classes. So you can also find that on the website. Look on the left-hand side and look for Kombucha Camp classes. We have one coming up this Saturday, and then we do them every month, a couple of classes, so you can come and learn from the Kombucha Mama. You get to drink all the kombucha you want. We get a great PowerPoint presentation, live demo. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, nice. Well, Thank you so much, Hannah, for being on, and I feel like we just barely scratched the surface, but I love everything you were talking about with the bacteria and how important that is, and thanks so much for just spending some time with us and educating our listeners about how important and how great kombucha is. Really appreciate that.
Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate what you guys are doing, getting the information out there, because people are confused. And this type of information, we say trust your gut. Whatever resonates with you, whatever makes sense to you, follow that.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Hannah.
So, Kate, what do you think about Hannah?
I love that girl. I want to hang out with her.
Yeah, she's so cool, huh?
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I just think it's so cool just how important bacteria is for people. And, just the average person has no idea.
Yeah.
No idea that their bacteria is actually their immune system.
Oh, I know. You think bacteria bad.
Yeah, you think bacteria bad. I mean, that's just media conditioning. And
right.
How many people eat fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, kombucha on a daily basis? Most people look at you and just think you're nuts.
Right. In our culture, for sure.
Oh,
you grow
man.
What? You do what?
Thing? I remember my brother did that. He told me about a friend of his that had this SCOBY growing in his kitchen and
really
kind of made fun of it. And I just, man, it was...
That's before you know anything.
Yeah.
And then once you know,
it's like, wow, this stuff is so important. So I want to thank everyone for being on this show, and hopefully you learned a lot from Hannah, and go over to her website. And we have affiliate links if you're interested in supporting our work on this show page, which is extremehealthradio.com/84. And if you click on those, we'll earn a little commission if you buy anything from her. But she's got a lot of great stuff, and she's a cool
yeah, her
person.
site's awesome.
Yeah, lots of good resources, lots of free information videos and articles and things. And
consider taking a class if you live in Southern California.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get myself over there.
Yeah, I want to do the continuous brew because we're doing the one now. I think I want to do the continuous brew.
That'd be awesome.
That would be cool. Just have it on hand all the time.
Let's do it.
I want to thank Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his website. And if you would like to support us, there's a number of different ways you can. We could greatly, greatly use your support in any way possible. If you want to purchase from Amazon, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/Amazon. Anytime you make purchases, that would be a huge help. If you want to join our mailing list, we've got lots of great subscribers on there. It's growing every single day. And we email about once a week, and lots of great content on there about our show and different health topics. And if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, you can do that at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook and click the like button. And you can also visit our store. We've got over 75 products with physical things like dehydrators and blenders and the Vitamix and the Rebounder, the Bellicon, the Sauna, Ejuva Cleanse, what else? Air purifiers, all kinds of great stuff for your home and for your lifestyle. So visit our store. And then if you'd like to donate, we could greatly, greatly use your donations. This is a free thing and we don't charge for any of it. It's all completely free. And so we rely on your donations and support in any way possible. So we could greatly use your donations. That would be extremely helpful. And you can just go to extremehealthradio.com/donate, or there's a donate button on the right-hand side of our site. But if you can't donate, don't feel bad. It's no big deal. We just want to make sure it's free for everyone. So you can support us by sending this link to your friends, clicking like on this show page, sharing it with your Facebook friends and in email and things like that. And those are all great ways to support us that doesn't cost anything. And
we'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, everything will work out. And so I want to thank you for joining us. And if there's anything we could do for you, please email us. What's your email address, Kate?
Kate at extremehealthradio.com.
Oh, yeah, Kate, Extreme Health Radio. We just got it